Welcome to coverage of the Digital Entertainment On Demand SuperGP Champions Trophy, proudly brought to you by Digital Entertainment On Demand and their associate sponsors.
Round 3 of the Digital Entertainment On Demand SuperGP Champions Trophy, which means we're in Cape Town and it is going to be an absolutely epic day of racing. It's going to start off crisp, but we know that Cape Town is going to deliver, and this race circuit of Killarney throws out some of the best racing every single time we arrive here.
The one thing to look out for today, Matt, is wildcards. That's all I'm going to say. It'll be a catchphrase for the day. There are plenty Cape Town local riders that are extremely quick here. And we're going to see what they can do up against South Africa's best.
Lance Isaacs is looking for a turnaround of his season, and it may just happen today.
Let's have a quick squiz at the lap of Killarney racetrack, courtesy of the Black Swan Racing BMW rider. Lance Isaacs heading into Digital Entertainment On Demand, turn 1, or Hole's Hook as it's known here normally, and then they go along the short Joubert straight up into turn 2, which we know as Portable Straight today.
This is where line choice is key. It has got very, very bumpy, so there's going to be all kinds of overtaking coming out of this turn, and a lot of crashes as well. We do note that this is the scariest corner on the track. Very hard braking until you get on the gas.
Yeah, flick it over onto the left-hand side towards Discover Digital. This is normally where we head down into what is Damps Dip. So Double D here today as they come out of Damps. You head along the back straight away and into Malmesbury. Pirelli sponsored Malmesbury this weekend. As you head across there, you can see it's everything she's got. Double apex, drifts slightly wide, and then down, probably one of the fastest straights in the country.
If the wind picks up, watch for the locals to hug the right-hand side of the straight to stay out of the wind. This is everything she's got, heading towards 300 k's an hour and then dropping the anchors.
Dropping the anchors into NGL, or Cape Town Corner as it's normally known. NGL Logistics, of course, coming on board with us, and they will have the sponsorship of this turn. It's a flick over onto the left-hand side and down the main straightaway, across the line, and if you've got it all right, that's what your qualifying lap should look like.
For the first time down in Cape Town, we see the Super Juniors. This is a brand new category with KTM 390s as the base, and all of the youngsters are here to entertain.
Expecting to see the race times come tumbling down, but in qualifying on a cool circuit, it was local rider Kuhn Sneyman who dominated out front, pulling a clean second out of the rest of the field. William Friend, the championship points leader, in second, and another Cape Town local, Brandon Stefan, in third.
Off the line and down towards turn 1, a great start from William Friend. Looked like the 34 machine was going to get the whole shot. As they came under the braking, it was exactly that. Friend, who was our championship leader coming into this round, getting the whole shot into turn 1.
And the rest of the Cape Town locals are going to be following suit, but big surprise to see that the guys that have been in the championship the whole way through the year battling. In fact, the only non-Cape Town rider that could hang tough was Friend, and he could take the fight right to the top 2 Cape Town locals, but the top 3 were breaking away from the pack.
Now the 3 getting away at the front end included Sneyman and Stefan. In the back you can see Luca Coccioni fighting things out there with Tyrese Roberts and Jared Schultz. Side by side action as they come down into Cape Town Corner. Whoa, getting extremely sideways there and eventually getting it all right. Nicely done from Brandon Stefan. He now moves up and takes the lead.
William Friend was an absolute demon on the brakes though. The big kid just keeps that front end planted, but the Cape Town guys know all the outside lines, and Stefan and Sneyman were using all the curbs to their advantage.
Loving life as they came into Pirelli Malmesbury, and as you can see, the 2 Cape Town boys sandwiching the Gauteng rider right now, and all of a sudden Luca Coccioni had got a little bit of a whip and decided, let's just turn the wick up a bit and go and get these boys, and he wasn't too far off the back.
Coccioni was the man putting in the fast lap times to bridge the gap and make it 4 riders at the front rather than the 3. The guys in the chase group were Dominic Doyle and Tyrese Roberts, who were also starting to come to the front as the infighting was slowing the pace down.
You can see Kuhn Sneyman with a slightly different riding style. He gets up and over the bars and completely away from the bubble as he climbs on the brakes early, but he still manages to carry on, and a problem for William Friend. coming out of turn 2, portable shade, and he parked it on the sideline. Friend was out.
The championship points leader coming into this round. The second technical problem he had on his machine in the championship, and he was gone, meaning that Coccione now took over third.
And was looking pretty tasty there. Dominic Doyle continued his battle with Tyrese Robert for 4 and 5, and the two of them were going at it hammer and tongs. There's no doubt about that either one of those riders could possibly even steal a podium position if we'd had some action like we've seen in the first 2 rounds.
After Coccione bridged the gap, he then hung with the Cape Town guys. So Coccione was the massive surprise package coming into the Cape Town round. The 67 was up there and doing a lot of learning.
And he found something special on that machine. You could see as William Friend walked away, very despondent man, as the riders came through and lapped and got past him. And there was some work to be done in pit lane for that team to get him back on track.
Yeah, championship points leader. That would be something that he would want to forget as we moved forward with the rest of the season's racing.
So the battle continued, and it was all about Dominic Doyle and Tyrese Robert at the front, though. Stefan and Sneeman going at it side by side. Stefan hanging on for now, but how much longer could he keep it going? Because the battle that was raging between these two was starting to get real and was certainly starting to fall into the hands of Sneeman, who looked ever that more comfortable.
Yeah, those last few laps of the race, the Cape Town boys certainly dropped the hammer, and they got their moves up there, dropping Coccione off the back wheel and going after some lap times as well. Remember that the KTM RC 390s, the Junior Cup, first time here at Cape Town, would be setting a new lap record for the category.
Now, great effort there from Sneeman to take the first checkered flag of the day for the Super Junior class on his tail. Brandon Stefan looking to close up on championship point leader William Friend after he saw his friend make his way to the sideline.
Coccione got third place, and with that, took the lap record as he closed up on the top 2. But Cape Town walked away with the big trophy. Sneeman ahead of Stefan, Coccione. Doyle won out that battle to beat Tyrese Robert down into 5th place.
Schultz was 6th with Jabir in 7th, Jenna Ecott, our lady rider, in 8th, and William Friend with the DNF. But on the podium, it was all about the celebrations for Kieran Sneeman.
Let's make some noise. A little bit of luck going your way when William had some bad luck.
Yeah, when that happened, I had to go on the outside. I was actually worried that it just hit the curb or something. He was coming after me. When I looked back on the straight, he wasn't there.
Hi, my name is Lance Murray and I'm racing in the Super Juniors, and this is my NGR Logistics delivered to you in 60 seconds. My proudest moment is when I won my first race at Swartkops. My favorite track would be Red Star Raceway in Mpumalanga. My favorite superhero would be Batman. Nando's or KFC would be Nando's. My favorite sport besides motorsport would be soccer. MotoGP or SPK, I'd say MotoGP. My motorbike sounds like brap, brap, brap. My biggest rival would be Tyrese Robert. My most prized possession would be my first racing helmet. My favorite sports car is the Maserati. A mountain bike or road bike, I think I choose a mountain bike. My favorite cartoon would be Popeye. Twitter or Instagram, I'd say Twitter because it gives you more exposure.
Going straight forward into heat number 2, and William Friend was back into the mix, meaning he was going to be a spoiler, certainly, into turn number 1.
He went side by side there with Sneeman as they headed down into turn 1, and yes, managed to get the whole shot around the outside. Great riding and a good recovery there, but still lots of work to do, because remember, he has to come back and go from 0 to hero.
Yeah, Sneeman was rock solid off the line, and the Cape Town kids certainly showed the rest of the riders from around the country where the sweet spot is on the Cape Town circuit, especially going into turn number 2, portable shade turn.
You can see that Stefan was using the same line and closed up on the front two. Coccione ran a little bit wide, using the wrong line through there, opening up the door and allowing Robert through.
In the early parts of the race, Friend was going to be rock solid. But remember, the big kid, maniac on the brakes, but the little kids from Cape Town know how to get the hammer down through and get the drive down the straights.
Now, Wild William had his work cut out for him, that was for sure. As they headed down that back straight away, Sneeman managed to sneak through, and Stefan was coming along for the ride. Coccione had bridged the gap and brought Tyrese Robert along for the ride as they went down into Cape Town corner. NGL Logistics was seeing lots of action from our Super Juniors.
Robert had done a great job, done a lot of learning in heat number 1 to find out how to run the pace of the guys out front, and he had left his sparring partner from race number 1, Dominic Doyle, to pick up the pieces.
Doyle was right out of it, unfortunately, not running as well as what you hoped for. Jared Schultz was fighting for him. You could see them just in the background as they came across the line to complete another lap, and it was the 2 Cape Town boys that led things out, but William Friend was not done yet.
The best race of the season was just starting at this point. 5 of the top juniors coming into the season, a couple of them seeing Cape Town for the very first time and delivering incredibly close racing.
It's good to see these youngsters getting to grips with these bikes as well, right from the word go, and into the third round and down into Cape Town corner again, hard on the brakes, and Stefan this time was on the inside, but Sneyman was having none of it. He just managed to rail around that outside turn, used the banking to his advantage, and kept first place.
Luca Coccioni was trying to stay with them, and by the halfway marker had once again bridged the gap to throw down the hottest lap of the race. So the 67 was doing a bit of a Rossi on the crowd and joining in later on.
Sitting in the back in 4th place, but putting in the hot lap times and putting in a brand new lap record for the KTM. So great effort there from him. Even though he wasn't quite getting in the mix with the first 3, he certainly was waiting to pounce.
He seemed to be able to run every now and again almost half a second faster than the rest, and it seemed to be portable shade turn that was the chink in his armor as the Cape Town boys went elbow to elbow and started to think about pulling the pin to get away from the chasers.
Handlebars were touching as they came through the Discover Digital and went down into Double D. That's Damstip, or Discover Digital as we like to call it today. And as they came out there, Tyrese Robert with a slight problem, losing a little bit of ground to the first fall.
Just lost a gear there, lost the toe, and it would be a big ask to rejoin the party.
You could see he was still on the back end, but just not able to get into the front end with these top 2, and both of them Cape Town riders, and using their Cape Town home track advantage.
Kieran Sneyman on the 46 versus the 95 of Stefan, and it was down to the last couple of laps to make it the decider who would walk away with the crown and be the king of Cape Town for the very first time in the junior racing on the KTM RC 390s, which were at this round delivering
Great action as well. William Friend at one point looked like he was just tapping out of it, but remember, consolidation at this point was pretty much in his head, especially considering the fact that he hadn't finished the first race. So
Stefan was doing the big climbing up the inside of the lines, but the king of the outside curbs was all about Sneyman.
Sneyman hanging on to that outside as they went through Pirelli and Malmesbury. They came side by side. Who was going to get it here? Across the line, absolutely nothing in it, and you can see just how close they were getting. 3 bikes going into turn 1, side by side, and Stefan thought he had it, but unfortunately just got railed around the outside again by Sneyman.
The riders were setting themselves up. It seemed to be who could get the best run out of the final turn, and it was coming down to the numbers. Sneyman had pulled the pin.
Unfortunately, Coccioni had lost a bit of ground back again to Tyrese Robert. Robert was right onto the tail, looking for a way through, and you can see how hard he was riding. Remember, he was riding for his grandfather, who passed away just a week before.
The top 5 had definitely stretched their legs, putting almost 8 seconds into the next group of riders who just couldn't find the pace to run with the numbers, because everyone in the top 5, the difference between race number 1 and race number 2 was almost a second a lap faster.
Yeah, incredible stuff that there were only a second a lap between them as well. That's all the difference from the man going across the line first to the 5th place bike going across the line. Only 1 second, in fact 0.908. Absolutely nothing, and then they went side by side down into Cape Town. 5 abreast into turn 5.
5 abreast, and Tyrese Robert was now starting to find some room. Coccioni got a little bit late on the brakes, tagging one of the Cape Town locals, and that would be the end of his race, certainly the end of his chances to getting into a top 3.
Brandon Stefan was the rider that just survived that little tap from behind, and you could see he wasn't happy about it and immediately went on attack. He was going to use the adrenaline that was pumping through the veins to try and get up onto his Cape Town stablemate, and up the inside managed to take the lead.
The good news for Coccioni, it was still going to be a 5th place. He was still going to be in the mix, and because 4 riders were tripping over each other, the gap came down once again. The replay showing how close things actually got. Coccioni getting the biggest toe and run to arrive at NGL Cape Town corner faster than he had done in previous laps.
Unfortunately, what happened though, as he came in there, he just tagged the back of Stefan and had to sit up. Stefan, fortunately, as I said, survived and managed to continue the battle at the front end. And you can see Tyrese Robert was now hungry to get on the podium.
There was just enough time to deliver another lap of racing, but all about the 46 of Sneyman, trying to not look behind and trying to just focus on forwards. William Friend, though, and Tyrese Robert were starting to eye up the inside lines.
Stefan had the inside line absolutely marked to perfection and went through to take the lead on the final corner. It was all about Sneyman and Stefan now. Who would get the drive to the line? A little bit of a drag race as they came through the kink. They were going to go side by side, and would the slipstream effect help Sneyman out and get him across the line first? They came side by side. Friend trying to come alongside with him, and across the line, Sneyman incredibly took it by 0.05 of a second.
The pull-out timed to absolute perfection, and the top 5 riders separated by only 0.3 of a second, showing how close the racing was at round number 3 in Cape Town.
Good recovery from William Friend, and that'll maintain his lead in the championship, but it's all about Snyman and Stefan closing down on him. They took first and second, respectively, with Friend in third, Tyrese Robert in fourth, and Coccione down in fifth. A double victory on the day sees Snyman back at the top of the podium, and it was great to see the youngsters enjoying the spoils as Dave Griffin from KTM handed out all the medals.
Race 2. Unfortunately, not a great one in the first one there. What actually went wrong, buddy?
I'm not sure. I was coming third and I was going to plan a move for the last lap, and then the bike just died going into the turn, so I had to pull off.
And now took it back to the pits, and they sorted it out and back on the podium.
Yeah, well, I tried my hardest and I thought let me just finish rather than backed off a bit towards the end and got a podium.
I'd just like to thank my sponsors, Keating and Janssen, Princeton Cleaning, and Airwaves for sponsoring my leathers. And yeah, Kieran Snyman put on a brilliant dice and I give him 10 points.
No doubt about it. You've taken some good points away from William Friend as well, which is bringing the championship a bit closer.
Yeah, it's going to go down to Red Star. Hopefully he doesn't have bike problems again, but you know, it's going to be good. Hopefully we see Kieran Snyman there again.
I would love to be racing the juniors for the rest of the season. I would just like to thank everyone that has helped me get on the grid today, financially, and to my friends and family, and to Zante for supporting me. And just thank you to everyone who helped me get out there.
Super 600s, and probably the best racing we've seen all season long. However, it's been dominated by Stephen Odendaal. Can anybody find something special here in Cape Town to try and take that dominance away from the near-life Yamaha rider?
Round number 3, giving us the big upset of the season. Sheridan Moraes out-qualifying the man who would be king, Odendaal, points leader. Mikey White in third and Blaze Baker in fourth.
Great effort from third overall in qualifying, but first in his class, Hayden Jonas. He'll be pushing hard from about fourth row on the grid to try and catch these two. Sheridan Moraes on the Nashua MTech Racing Yamaha and the near-life Yamaha. Battle of the tuning forks on the front row with Magic Mike White on the Kawasaki.
A 15-lap race was going to test all and test the tyres to the absolute limit.
Incredible effort there from Nicole van Arswegen on the first of the triumphs, outgunning Alan John Fenter. So looking for triumph dominance at the front end, but unfortunately just losing a little bit of ground as they went down into turn number 1, and it was all about Odendaal who got the whole shot.
Blaze Baker did very well to convert his start because he had that thing up and in the air, was able to get the front end down and chase down the top 3.
Shares had a good start, but unfortunately just lost one position. Baker going on the inside and nearly up the inside of Michael White as they came down into turn 2, Discover Digital. You can see just how hard these youngsters were riding because there was no holds barred here, and unfortunately Ricky Leweir was the first one to go down after trying a little bit too hard.
Yeah, part of the second chase group and just pushed it a little bit too hard right at the end of lap number 1. At the front though, it was a 2-horse race with Odendaal, the championship points leader and reigning champion, getting chased down by Marius. Barnard had his problems in the early laps as well.
Yeah, pulling to the sideline. Unfortunately, that was going to be the end of race number 1 for Dylan Barnard, but he'd be back for race 2. We'd have to wait and see what the issue was on that bike. But you see him looking down, not happy. The two Yamahas, though, were absolutely hauling, and they had to, because in the background, Hayden Jonas had found his way past on the 2 regular Super 600 Kawasaki's and was now up to third overall.
That was the big story, something that everyone had predicted since the announcement that the wildcard regional riders would be able to join. Qualifying outside the top 10, Jonas got himself by the halfway marker up into third.
He was absolutely hauling, but no one was able to run with the power and the speed that these two bikes were getting, and eventually it was going to be a 2-horse race unless Jonas could find something special like we've seen all day long and like we'd seen all weekend long from the Cape Town locals.
The two Yamahas of Marius and Odendaal were trying their very best to throw down massive numbers and not only break away but go for a brand new lap record. Jonas, though, was the fastest man on track at this point.
The Shez show with the typical 2-leg off into turn 1 managed to just keep it all at the front end for the MTech Nashua Yamahas. The 2 tuning fork bikes were absolutely on song and very evenly matched.
Jonas had thrown down a 1:12.66, setting a brand new lap record as he just inched his way onto the back end of the top 2. The Yamahas were on the money and they were rock solid, throwing down big numbers every single lap. But the fastest man on track was Jonas, and it would only take him another lap to join the party.
He was right in there and ready for the fight as well. The local man was definitely looking forward to showing the usual contenders in Super 600s. And when I say that, I mean the near-life Yamaha, not necessarily Sheridan, because Sheridan was also a newcomer to this series. He'd been on international duties and was now back in full swing to take on the Might, unfortunately losing out to local down in Cape Town.
Sheridan used his infinite ability to know that there was another rider there. Jonas went through, but at the same time, race leader Odendahl made a massive mistake. And straight, just like that, in one turn, Jonas hit the front.
From 3 to 1, it was pretty simple stuff for him, and you could see just how hard he was pushing. He didn't want to keep these two Yamahas anywhere near the front end or the top of the podium, although slight mistakes, and that was just due to the fact that he was under immense pressure, a lot more than what he would normally be down here at the Cape Town Mike Hopkins series.
The last few laps of the race were all about chopping and changing, everyone flipping a coin and taking their turn at the front to plow the traffic and plow the field, because lappers and downed riders were the story of the late race.
John Oliver just running ever so slightly wide down into turn number 1 there, and unfortunately giving Digital Entertainment on Demand some more entertainment on demand. Sheridan Mariah sideways down into NGL Logistics, and oh, a back marker in the way cost Stephen Odendahl massive.
Xander Duplessis in the wrong place at the right time, or vice versa, whoever you were in the top 3. But it blew the top 3 wide open, and that would be a massive story and a hard reaction for all riders to deal with.
An incredible bit of riding style there and skill from Odendahl to miss the slightly slower back marker, but he came straight back and was now very hungry for a victory.
The regroup happened, and the incredible riding style of Jonas showed that he had the skills to make it count. Everyone was trying to climb under each other. Sheridan Marias wanted a bite of the apple, and he would now be pushing on to see what he could do to try and break away from the other two riders. Magic Mike was still in 4th place, but by now a long way back.
Yeah, they bridged a massive gap between themselves and 4th place Magic Mike, and it was going to be a battle between these three that would eventually go down to the checkered flag. Hayden Jonas, though, was fighting for honours, and he wanted to be the first bike over the line. Despite the fact that we're running 2 sets of rules here, one for the R class and one for the Super 600 class, it was all about bragging rights and who would have the top of the podium.
The regional rider Jonas wanted to do his best, and he did the standard option Cape Town thing. When you are leading, you cover the inside line. Sets himself up way too wide though on the brakes, and Odendahl backs her in, but also pushes it a little bit too wide.
And Jonas came straight back at him. He had to make a little bit of a change in line. They did Odendahl as they came out and through the portable shade sweep. See just how hard Jonas was pushing now to get away from these two Yamahas. Only a couple of laps left. Could he keep out the reigning champion and multiple South African champion, Sheridan Marias?
Each of the top 3 riders had a go at leading. Each of them had a go at trying to get the pass and drive coming out of Cape Town corner. That's NGL Logistics, and this was where it was going to happen.
Down onto the braking markers, Odendahl was extremely late. He went around the outside. Bit of a slide there from Jonas, and again, and all of a sudden the door opened up, and who went through? It was the show. The Shez Show jumping through and taking the lead and possibly the race victory.
Sheridan being in the right place at the right time, but also using his immense experience to take it all the way to the flag. He put one over on reigning champion Stephen Odendahl with the number 1 plate. He also took it to the might of Hayden Jonas, who proved that he is the king of Cape Town.
We'll add one more little benefit to that. He was the first Yamaha across the line as well, so that just bodes well for the Battle of the Tuning Forks. Mariah's taking it from Odendahl. Magic Mike White would eventually see himself up on the podium ahead of Baker and Rudman, Van Arsvik and Fenter and Weir, your top 8.
The regional 600 races gave us an incredible ride. Jonas taking the win ahead of Vandenberg, Oliver in 3rd, even with his late race problems, ahead of Schultz, and Duplessis having a rough ride in 5th.
Big celebrations, and great to see the Shez Show back on top of the podium. He was quite stoked about what happened in that race with Hayden Jonas.
Hi, this is Michael White, and I'm racing in the Super 600s for Consortium Shipping. This is my NGL Logistics, brought to you in 60 seconds. My proudest moment has got to be my first ever win in the Super 600s. It's just the best feeling ever to come out on top there. My favorite racetrack's got to be, I must say, Durban. The Durban track was just the best for me, most exciting and most out of control. My favorite superhero, it's got to be Mighty Mouse. Got called that when I played soccer, so Mighty Mouse it is. Everyone's got to love a blonde, but brunettes also look pretty too, eh? Nando's or KFC? Let's go with Nando's. Everyone prefers ring sting. Favorite sport besides motorsports? I don't actually know. Let's go surfing. Between MotoGP and SBK, I prefer MotoGP just because Brad and Darren are in it. My motorbike sounds like my biggest rival at the moment's got to be Stephen Odendahl, just because we're so close in the championship. My most prized possession, it's got to be my Bulldog tank. It's the best thing ever. It's like my son. Favorite sports car, Ferrari. Mountain bike or road bike, mountain bike, just because I can wheel it. Favorite actress, Jessica Alba. Instagram,
People go follow me. Hashtag Magic Mark. Go hit me a like. Thank you.
The story of race number 2 would be to see who was going to be the dominant rider. Would Sheridan Marias be able to go 2 for 2 on the day?
Not if you're going to start like that from Stephen Udendahl. And Magic Mike nearly went around the outside going into turn 1. I think we're in for a great battle here, and there's no doubt about it that the two Kawasaki's were going to be wanting to run a little bit quicker than what they did with the Yamahas in race number 1.
Magic Mike in 3rd place in the early stages. Blaze Baker, again, blazing his way off the line. And Rudman, a much better start, joining the top 5.
Great to see Ricky Weir back in it as well. And unfortunately, Rudman coming out of turn 2. Oh, got it all wrong in Discover Digital and parked it on the sideline. So a great start. And unfortunately went down in turn 2.
One of our top national riders stepping off the Yamahas just 2 rounds ago to develop that Kawasaki. And unfortunately, after his best start of the day, throwing it a little bit wild and wide, and everyone was getting loose.
Yeah, getting out of shape, a couple of riders. Oh, and in fact, a very important rider, our championship leader and current champion on the Neolife Yamaha. That was Udendahl, and it looked like that was Udendahl out. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, he goes to the bike, and hands on the head, he would walk away from a ton of championship points.
As you can see, coming out of NGL Logistics, just climbed on a little bit too quickly on the loud pedal, or the loud handle, and got it all wrong. And it was just a loop out. That was him, gone from race 2.
Sheridan Marias then went on and threw it down the road in spectacular fashion as well. Just a little bit later on, he had crossed the stripe to tag 1 lap, but coming out of turn number 2, just got all kinds of wild in Discover Digital. That meant we had totally different players out front.
Into Damston, let's cue the Kawasaki's. Blaze Baker, Magic Mike, and Hayden Jonas was now along for the ride. He bridged the gap from the dual starts there, and the 600 rider from the regionals was now into the battle for the podiums.
Sheridan Marias just off the sideline there, damage to his machine, so he would just be limping around off the racing line to go and park it and leave these boys to put on the big show. Blaze Baker took his turn at the front.
Baker just trying to keep out Jonas. Jonas under pressure from behind from Magic Mike White. Consortium shipping Kawasaki taking on the lead rider here, Blaze Baker. Muscle and fitness Kawasaki looking good, and looked like he would have to use all that muscle and fitness to try and keep up the 2 riders behind him.
All about the green machines, and Jonas was not just dragging that leg for show. He was trying to get as much weight onto the front end so he could do the big moves under braking. He didn't seem to have a chink in his armor, but unfortunately, the top 2 campaigners from race number 1, Udendahl and Sheridan Marias, were officially out.
A little battle a bit further on continued. It was great to see Nicole van Arsveken giving it absolutely everything she can. Fighting hard and outgunning her stablemate there, Alan John Fenter, who of course was looking a little bit higher up and a little bit longer into the calendar as he had to go into international duties at the Isle of Man.
Out front, Magic Mike was sick of following the lines and wanted to just bust a move up the inside. He saw his chance, went for a physical move, which is rare in superbike racing, but got the moves on and got clear air.
Just a slightly different line there from Magic Mike as opposed to the double apex that Blaze Baker was running. The single apex allowed Mike to use that block pass and almost motocross style went through to take the win.
Yeah, very clever move, very aggressive, but Blaze Baker was now fired up, and his lap times in race number 2 showed that he could react. In the replay, you could see Magic Mike climbing up the inside, a little touch, but at the completely perfect point of the turn.
Alex van den Berg fighting with Nicole van Arsveken. Nicole van Arsveken looking for an opportunity of making it the very first lady in a Super 600 podium. That's what she was fighting for. She didn't have to worry too much about Alex van den Berg, although she was loving the little battle the two of them were in. Remember, van den Berg was running in the R-Class as her stablemate pulled onto the sideline with problems on the Triumph.
A high attrition rate in heat number 2 of the Super 600s, seeing almost 5 riders have to step out of this one.
No problems for this man, though. He got to the front and disappeared. He was going to take the overall victory now that the 2 Yamahas weren't there. So it was pretty much plain sailing for him, but the battle continued for second place between Magic Mike and Blaze Baker. That was not done until the checkered flag dropped.
And the incredible story about heat number 2, apart from Jonas taking the win, was even on those few laps that Sheridan Marias was out there on the track, he set a new lap record.
But Jonas was quite happy with the performance, and you could see he was happy in front of his home crowd. Unfortunately, he wouldn't get up onto the podium, but then luck changed as he got up onto the podium, winning the Rookie of the Day.
Magic Mike taking his first national victory at Cape Town at round number 3 of the Super 600s.
Confirmation there of Michael White, Blaze Baker, Nicole van Arsveken, first lady on the podium as well. So lots of history being set down at the Mother City. Ricky Weir and Alan John Fenter, 4 and 5.
In the regionals, all about Jonas once again ahead of Oliver, who got a much better ride this time to get second, ahead of Vanderberg, Schultz, and Duplessis once again in 5th.
great to have the local man up there as Rookie of the Day, joining the celebrations on the podium.
You know, it was a fantastic race. Race one, I didn't expect anything to happen like that, to come from 13th on the grid. And you know, coming towards the start of the weekend, I was very nervous because I was going to be in the same grid as my South African hero, which is Sheridan Marias. And to be riding and learning from him was amazing. Race two, I just thought, you know, let's do it again. And I pushed as hard as I could. I got a false neutral into turn 5, and the last 3 laps my chain was running a bit loose, so I had to coast off to the line. But I just got to say a big thank you to ASAP Ball, Trace Trade, Coast and Country, RI Helmets, just everyone for all the support. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to Arnold. He's stuck by my side forever. And Arnold, thank you to my boyfriend, my mom and dad, and everyone that supports me. Thank you very much. I'm lucky enough to be on the podium, and sorry to the guys that fell, but thank you. Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, it's one podium. What we saw with the other lady that used to be involved with Super GP is once the podiums come, they keep coming. Are we going to get some more at Red Star, a track that's been really good to you?
Definitely. Once the confidence is there, it's there. So, yeah, I'm hoping.
We came here this weekend not knowing where we are at all, and struggled in race 1, and then unfortunate about the mistakes there by Stefan and Shez. But, yeah, we're happy with the performance here for the second race. And yeah, thank you to everyone here who's been by my side, Turbo Fluid, Muscle and Fitness, Russell Wood, SPK Awe, and yeah, this is a little something to my mom here.
Unfortunately, the 2 guys in front of me crashed. For me, it's good because I got close in the championship, but I always wanted to beat an Oak fair and square rather than him crashing out. So we'll see next round. Hopefully we can be there, but thanks to Consortium Shipping, Aero Cannon, Motor Uno Racing, everyone that's helped me. I really couldn't have done it without them. To get the first one, I'm over the moon.
Super GPs and Super Ms once again here at round number 3 combined, but we are going to see one of the biggest grids we have seen for the last 2 seasons. A lot of the locals are lining up, and watch out for the big names. McFadden is there, McFlash. Let's see what he can do, but we know he's going to be on a hot bike, so Seller, Isaacs and all the key players will be going for him. Levy is back in the house, all the KTMs are lined up, and the Super Ms are going to be kept extremely busy. But we may see a brand new winner once again here at round number 3.
First and foremost, let's go and find out who is going to take Super Pole. We've already seen the King dethroned at the last round, and down here, Sir Lancelot was certainly looking like he was the man to win everything out when it came to Super Pole.
A lot of pressure on the shoulders of Lance, who is looking for a real good turnaround of his season. He has been selling us and the crowd a lot of dummies the whole way through rounds 1 and 2 with his new, very smooth race style, and Super Pole once again was going to see if he could climb to the very top of the charts.
It was looking good as they came down into NGL Logistics and headed towards Portable Shade Sweep. Lance Isaacs on the Black Swan BMW was looking to take away what was currently held by Nicholas Kershaw as the provisional Super Pole, and he managed to do it. But there were 2 more riders still to come, and both of them were Yamaha mounted.
The brand new Yamahas were in the house finally, but with hardly any setup or development time. In fact, most of the riders only getting their hands on the bikes on the Friday before the Sunday's race day. It would be up to the riders with as much ability and skill and experience to see if they could ride around the setup problems that were not quite there.
Yeah, you can see just how hard Matthew Scholz was having to push this bike. A little bit over its limit, and maybe over his limit as well, but he looked good, and it looked like he was going to have enough time to dethrone Lance Isaacs. As he came across the line, Scholz went into provisional Super Pole, Lance Isaacs down to 3rd.
With 1 rider remaining, the number 1 plate, and the rider who in the last 13 months has only been bested once by Brent Herron, but the king of Super Pole was here in Cape Town at round number 3 to take his crown back.
On new machinery, looking to make sure that the Yamahas were on the front row, and he was doing a great job as they came through and headed up towards Pirelli Malmesbury. Down into NGL Logistics and Cape Town Corner, it looked like it was all perfectly done, and by the looks of the times, coming out of pro timing, it was all about this man. Evel Knievel, I think, had done enough. We'd have to wait and see as he crossed the line.
Sectors 1 and 2 were strong. The 3rd sector had everyone holding their breath, but Seller instantly knew that he had put one over on everyone and took his crown back to take Super Pole at round number 3.
The Mother City saw Super Pole Man at the front with Matthew Scholz in second, Lance Isaacs. Then it was Andre Calvert, a new man and a local man who stepped up into Super GP for the very first time. Nicholas Kershaw was behind him, and then it was all about Flock, Good and Harron.
In the Super M's, Bo Levy, the championship leader in this class, was not going to have it all his own way, qualifying in 6 with McFadden, Slammer and Westman from the Cape, taking it ahead of him.
I'm Darren Upton, racing the SuperGP Championship trophy for Turnskill RSA Racing. This is my NGL logistics, delivered in 60 seconds. Proudest moment is having my son last year 6th of May. Favorite racetrack, probably East London. Superhero, I don't have one to be honest. Blonde or brunette, brunette. Nando's KFC, definitely Nando's. Favorite sport, besides motorsport, probably a bit of golf, if I could say that. MotoGP or SBK, definitely SBK, because we can relate to the bikes. Motorbike sounds like biggest rival after the race tomorrow, I guess I'll know. Prize possession, probably our family business, Turnskill Engineering. Favorite sports car, probably Lamborghini. Mountain bike, road bike, definitely mountain bike, it's more fun. Favorite actress, I'm not fond of movies, so I don't have one to be honest. Twitter or Instagram, I'm not fond of both, but I'll go Instagram. That's me, Darren Upton, delivered in 60 seconds by NGL Logistics.
A bit of a change up as Super M's have a little bit of wild cards thrown in. That's not going to affect this man as he starts to get all prepped, or this man. Matthew Scholz certainly getting to grips with this new Yamaha very quickly.
Scholz has been aching for a win. He came very close in the wet, but now he is on equal machinery, and as the flag dropped, Scholz got the best drop off the line.
Great drop off the line as they head down into turn number 1, and it was all about Matthew Scholz on his tail. It's going to be followed very closely by Lancelot. And problems right into turn 1 as Garrick Flock got it all wrong. And in sympathy, and unfortunately being caught out there, was Nicholas Kershaw.
It was shades of 2014. Flock did the exact same move at the exact same corner. Last year on a Kawasaki, this year on a BMW. But Kershaw was the rider that got caught out there, and he went down hard.
Tsunami Beach Bar BMW rider managed to get up, but he was very, very sore, and in fact some big injuries there. As you can see, Flock went down, and just as they came out there, Kershaw was caught, unfortunately, just with a big high side, and he had to go down as well. So 2 BMWs out at the front end, yellow flags were waving, so no overtaking down into turn 1, which means Scholz would hang on, and Brent Harron, who hadn't been involved in the Super Pole due to a little bit of an incident and some problems on his bike, had that now all sorted out, and the Odin boys had got that bike firing, and he was now in amongst the front end. Problems though in the background as we saw the near life powered by Yamaha racing machine of Clint Sellers falling through and right to the back of the field.
At the end of lap number 1, the reigning champion and current championship points leader put his hand up and would be limping around back into the pits to try and figure out the problems on his machine. At this stage, all that Clinton Seller was thinking about was points, and he would desperately have to get something done on his bike to get himself out there. But at the front, all about Harron going straight at it and trying to take the lead, eventually taking it at the end of lap number 2, and that was qualifying down in 9th, and in 2 laps hitting clear air out front.
Incredible stuff, and the crowd was loving the fact that we had 3 manufacturers fighting for the top 3 on the podium. Kawasaki led out for now, ahead of the Yamaha and then the Black Swan BMW as Lancelot started to close in. Scholz went back and forth with Harron at almost every single turn, and very similar riding styles from 2 very tall riders. We're seeing an epic battle at the front end.
On the season as well, in the top 3, Lancelot had already taken 1 heat victory, as had Harron. Scholz has not tasted the checkers as yet, and he was desperate to deliver for the brand new Yamaha.
It was awesome to see how quickly. There you can see Garrick Flock parked on the sideline. Unfortunately for him, he was out. Then all of a sudden, the Super M rider started to come into play, and Brandon Good started to feel the effects of their massive charge. McFadden snuck through, as did Slammett, and unfortunately the 71 had to take a little bit of evasive action as the 2 very, very talented riders started to make their way to the front.
Goody was in the same boat as the other 2 brand new Yamaha riders out there trying to develop the bike at a race. Not an easy task. He would have to regroup back at home to try and figure things out.
Scott's looking over both shoulders to find out where Lancelot had disappeared to, but he was seeing Brent Harron disappear at the front end, and it wasn't going to be easy as Harron now had basically his sights set on getting that checkered flag and the top of the podium. He was really giving it everything he can. In the background, you were picking up on Goody. Goody was involved in a massive battle there with Andre Calvert, a new man to Super GP.
Yeah, while that was all happening though, the top 3 were stretching things away, and the Super M battle was about to join the party. They were running some hot lap times, and Harron would have been aware of this from his pit board. Dave Postlethwaite hanging over the wall, telling him he's got to hurry up the hustle.
Certainly did, and you can see that Lance Isaac was all of a sudden caught by both of his Cape Town counterparts and arch rivals in their day. McFadden was the first to pounce on the 69 machine and got up the inside. Lance Isaacs wasn't too worried about that though. Remember, he's riding in Super GP, so the Super M riders on slightly modified bikes have got a slight advantage here. So he didn't have to worry about the podium overall, he had to worry about the two riders who were getting away. That was Herron and of course Matthew Scotts.
Yeah, Isaacs had a real good run going, so this far in the season, points were on his mind and he was just trying to work things out, trying to keep his nose clean. Always complains that at the end of the races the BMW is a bit of a handful under the brakes, but it was all about Herron trying to break away from Scotts, and Scotts was hanging tough.
Yeah, he certainly was doing a great job on new machinery, and looks like it's going to bode well for the rest of the season there for the MTech team. It did look like Lance was battling with brakes. Sella was back out again, and you could see the Near Life Racing powered by Yamaha was back on track, and as he said that, problems for Herron.
Herron went down at a very crazy part of the track, ran it too loose and wide coming out of Malmesbury. That's known as Pirelli turn at this round, and that would bring out one of the craziest situations we have seen in superbike racing in a long time.
They managed to get the bike out of the way, and then the ER24 car was actually sent out on track. So everybody put their hands up thinking that that was the safety car and that was the end of the race. But actually, they were allowed to continue. It was not the safety car, it was just the emergency car that was sent out. And now it was up to McFadden and Ronald Slammond. We haven't really mentioned the Red Baron as such, but he was there as well and having a great run on the Noval Ford Kawasaki.
Yeah, the Kawasaki's were freight training it, but everyone else was in recovery mode by this point. A little bit of craziness had dropped down. The safety car, or would-be safety car, had pulled off circuit, and it was all good news for Sella. He was out there collecting whatever points he could.
It looked like he'd be able to get up to 6th place points, and that's really, really vital when you're looking at a possibility of a DNF, getting the bike sorted, getting back on track, and allowing him to score some kind of points here on the day.
Flag came out, and for the first time on the 2015 season, it would be a Super M taking the victory in the overalls, with the Red Baron in 2nd place and McFlash in 1st. But the huge story was the turnaround of fortune for Lance Isaacs. He was down there in 3rd. He actually got himself up to take the victory in the Super GP class, and that would help him out a ton in his efforts to try and nail down his first national championship.
Even though he took the victory on the day, there were still provisional results pending due to that incident with Brent Herron. There on the podium, David McFadden taking the top of Super M.
You know what, the guys are fast. The national guys are really, really fast, and it took us a while to get to them. I mean, they were riding outside of their skin, so you could see what happened on the field. But yeah, like, towards the end, I lost my 4th gear, so yeah, we had to roll it home.
It's good to be racing here, and it's always good. It's a nice atmosphere, and the guys put on a good event. It's nice to be out and racing, and winning, of course, is the best. The national boys are riding well, and it's good. I mean, hopefully race 2 we can get to the front a lot quicker and ride with them. Just the first few laps was a bit carnage with guys crashing off, and I just, settled into a race, but it was good. I'm happy, and let's see what happens in the 2nd race.
Even though their provisional results, the podium ceremony continued with Lance Isaacs on top, Scotts in 2nd, and Calvert in 3rd.
It was a big learning curve for me where I got very duffed up at the start, and then I saw bikes flying left, right, and center. I thought, okay, it's an opportunity. And I just kept my head cool. A couple of guys passed me. I thought, okay, by that halfway mark, they'll be coming back. And I worked forward, and it worked. Kept on keeping the pace.
This is our first race riding the 2015 bike, and obviously we're still learning things, learning how the traction control works and so on, things like that. But yeah, it was a really good first race for us, and hopefully we can come back one place higher for the 2nd round.
You know what, I have to say, Dean and my team, Gerard, the guys have done an excellent job.
Except on the brakes.
Yeah, except on the brakes. We've got to work on that. BMW Motorrad, the guys, Black Swan Energy. Thank you guys so much for this opportunity. I've been wanting a hometown win for a while. It's been eluding me. But, we had our heads down. We struggled all day yesterday with just getting stability sorted on the bike. In the race, I could see I could hang with Brent and Maddie, but unfortunately we just ran out of brakes like halfway through the race. I could pull up alongside Matt, but this new Yamaha, I must say, well done to the guys. They've done an excellent job. I've got a bunch of points. We think we're leading the championship now. Head down, bum up. We go racing race 2.
Welcome back to our continued coverage from the Diode SuperGP Champions Trophy in Cape Town for round number 3. Massive stories coming out of race number 1 in the SuperGP race, and everyone is back on the grid. This means it is going to have a completely different look.
big looking difference in terms of provisional results that are still pending from race number 1. And let's see what's going to happen now down into race number 2 and down into turn 1. Is it going to be the number 1 bike who gets the whole shot? No, it's not. As you see, Matthew Scholz hanging on and taking the whole shot as he went through there. But right on his tail was the second Yamaha, and Kinsella was now fired up.
And he would be praying that the number 1 machine would actually keep going this time. He had to go into the pits. He did go out there and limp around to try and get as many points as he could. He would now try and go for the win.
Yeah, magic stuff to get that bike sorted out, and well done to Alfie and the team for getting it all sorted out, considering it's brand new machinery. But now that it is, and was, he's absolutely hauling and trying to close down on Scholz. Coming out of Discover Digital Complex, you can see just how hard these riders were trying to push at the front end, and Brent Herron had recovered as well, and they'd got that bike back up, as the same thing applied for the Tsunami Beach Bar BMW of Nicholas Kershaw.
In fact, the only rider that didn't make the lineup for heat number 2 was Garrick Flock, with way too much damage on his privateered entered BMW. At the front, though, it was going to be chaos. Herron had done the unthinkable once again to get up and challenge for a top 3 placing at the end of lap 1 from a starting place of 9th. So the guy has got some big numbers, and he would be going for the win once again.
At that point, it was all about Super M coming through the field yet again, and the Red Baron led the field at this point. But McFadden was not too far off, as you could see. Behind there on the 69 bike, trying to find his way past on Lancelot, and Sir Lancelot was having none of it right now, trying to keep out McFlash.
Everyone was trying to feel their way around this unknown territory. Late in the day, tires were crying out, and the 2 brand new machines at the front, Scholz and Seller, were setting the bar high.
Yeah, they're certainly putting a great lap record pace as they went through and looking for opportunities to try and pull a bit of a margin over the charging Kawasaki's. The BMW, unfortunately, wasn't having it all his own way, and once again, braking issues were a problem there for Lancelot.
At this point, championship points leader in the Super M category, Bo Levy on the KTM, had decided he could not fight against the might of the local heroes, choosing to step out and return home early.
He'll be looking forward to the round at Red Star, which is where we go on the next part of our tour on the SuperGP Champions Trophy. As we got into the closing stages of this race, Super M and Super GP were now finally mixed. A Kawasaki, 2 Yamahas, and 2 Super M Kawasaki's fighting for the honors in the top 5.
Scholz was still looking for his first national victory of the season. The big surprise, though, was the fact that Lance Isaacs was out of the top 5 and a long way off the pace, really battling for pace.
Oh, and Ronald Slammer just throwing it away in the closing stages. A big mistake from the Red Baron. That's not normally what you see from him, and unfortunately it looks like that might be the end of his race.
Slamet was running the lead in the Super M category at the time, so that meant the 69 had chance to power on through, and he didn't take long to get himself right up into the mix. The 69 arrived at Cape Town corner, NGL Logistics turn, in 3rd.
One thing you have to take into account at this point, Matt, even though the 2 Yamahas were leading and that Super M Kawasaki of McFlashes had caught them, it wasn't getting away from the Super GP Kawasaki. And of course, remember, we spoke about the 2 rules. 2 sets of rules, one for Super M, slightly modified, and of course, almost stock standard motorcycles that modified bike was running with. And the Kawasaki of Herron was able to stick with him. Can you imagine what had happened if he'd stayed up in race number 1?
Exactly, and that is hopefully what we see for the rest of this season, because the top 4 were putting on the best show that we have seen for about 2.5 years. Extremely close and tight racing, and no one could call this one. Seller, though, was desperate. Out of all the riders, he needed to take the win. He needed as many points on the tally as he could walk away with.
Can you imagine if we'd thrown Sheridan Marias in for the mix as well? Would have been some fun and games on another R1. But, needless to say, he'd done his duties earlier on, and it was now up to Scholz to fly the flag high. And he was doing just that. The tuning fork battle was up for grabs here, as was who was going to be the best Kawasaki of the day.
It was going to be a big ask, because at this stage you could see that McFadden had pushed his tires very hard in races 1 and 2. And the Yamaha boys had done a lot of learning, done their homework between the 2 heat races, and were wanting to go for the win. McFadden, though, was very patient about his moves, eventually getting himself through into 2nd place. He would now be going after Scholz, the man who had been the engine on the front of the freight train almost the entire race.
Scholz had set some great pace and was certainly looking like he had what it takes to take the top of the podium. McFash was looking for another podium in terms of the number 1 spot for Super M, but he was in a battle, and a battle that he didn't quite expect, I think, at this point of the race.
Herron was looking like a man possessed on the 77. He was just sitting there, looked like he was saving a little bit of energy, looking for the chinks in the armor before he could pull the pin, because in race number 1, Herron was the man with the hottest lap times before he went down.
And he was the man who made the mistake, as you said, Matt. So he was now having to look at opportunities to get past the 2 Yamahas. The Yamahas were sticking with McFadden's pace. That was great to see. As they came down on the braking markers, we saw a change up again as the Neolife racing machine stuck through to second.
Two completely different riding styles coming out of the two equal Yamahas. The red bike of Sella, butter smooth. Scotts climbing all over that thing, likes to run the bike loose. And a nice shot in the background showing that the top five were head and shoulders ahead of the rest.
Now, super to see Jacques Ackermann just moving out of the way there nicely as one of the back markers. And now the gauntlet had been thrown down. And in fact, looking at the way that Sella was riding this bike and the way his body language changed to the end of the race, he was now going for the overall. He didn't want McFadden to win things out.
Definitely. He doesn't like to walk away getting beaten by anyone. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter what bike they are. When you've got the number one plate, you want to keep it there.
Fantastic stuff as Trevor the Killer Westman started to come in amongst the Cape Town heavies. And of course, when I talk about that, I'm talking about Lance Isaacs and Andre Calvert, who were fighting for honours now for top fives. So Calvert all of a sudden had a chance of sneaking through and bettering his day overall.
Calvert actually impressed a lot of riders, especially the national campaigners, who said they couldn't believe the pace that he could run on unknown rubber. But he was out there and he was starting to cover those lines, meaning he was under pressure. The only time you see a Cape Town local go all the way to the curb is when he's protecting his line.
And unfortunately, Sella wasn't protecting his line heading into NGL Logistics corner, and it opened up the door and Harron pounced. He managed to get through and now into second overall, chasing down on McFadden, looking for the overall victory. Scottsy unfortunately had lost a little bit of ground and it didn't look like he was going to be able to make up that two bike length between himself and Sella.
So for the first time in this race, literally with a few corners to go, Harron had made it to Kawasaki's in the top two. McFadden led, Harron was in second place, and Sella was more than desperate to get that wheel up the inside for the Yami.
The problem that he had was that the desperation might have cost him an opportunity of getting onto the podium, and I think he thought twice about it going into Cape Town. The checkered flag was waiting, and across the line it was going to be McFadden to win out, but Harron would take Super GPs in second overall, right on his tail with Sella, and then it was Matthew Scotts.
The underlying story of Cape Town, and especially heat number 2 of Cape Town, was the arrival of the new Yamaha R1.
Magic stuff there from the Kawasaki's as well, as Harron takes the victory ahead of Sella and Scholz. Brandon Good follows his teammate home in 4th ahead of Calvert. Lance Isaacs with problems down in 6th, and Kershaw eventually in 7th.
In the Super M's, McFadden takes another victory, but a change up in the 2 and 3. Westman gets up into 2nd ahead of Van Niekerk in 3rd.
Great to see Aaron Van Niekerk, who actually didn't have a ride coming into this weekend and got one very late stage, up on the podium, there with Trevor Westman and David McFadden.
Let's give him a big round of applause and have a quick chat.
I must say big thanks to Team Smith and Sunoco Racing Fuel GR5 Chemicals. Yeah, the last minute they just gave me a ring up. They said, listen, you want to ride the National? I said, yeah, let's go ahead. They TSR supplied a bike, Sunoco some money. And yeah, I'm very happy to be on the podium. Well done to everybody. It was a spectacular event, and thanks very much.
Like I said, the first heat, I didn't have my tire warm was on for too long. So race 2, I had full confidence. And I'm sorry to the rest of the riders for a little bit dirty, but I tried my best, ran wide, and did the job.
I'd like to come again, and you know, it's nice for Kawasaki to win. These new Yamahas go like, but the Kawasaki, you can bring a 2011 bike and still win races. You know, that's at the end of the day, that's how it is. Next time, I'll come ride the Super GP and beat them properly.
We're looking forward to that, and as are the Super GP riders. Harron on top of the podium, though, for Kawasaki.
Silla, David, and Brent were there, and those guys, all three of them are really quick, so I knew we were going to be in for a really hard race. And yeah, the last 3-4 laps, I was really sliding around quite a bit, and I tried to set up something that I can maybe pass them on the final lap, but I almost crashed on the second fast right, and they maybe pulled about a 1 second gap in me, and yeah, I couldn't catch them back up. But yeah, this is our first race riding the 2015 bike, and things are looking really positive. So hopefully the next round we can try to take the overall again.
Just unfortunate, you know, electronic issues. It's a bit of teething issues, so you know is what it is. So I mean, we managed to go salvage some points, which is important, really. And then second race, you know, we didn't run a full 15 laps, so didn't realize quite where the suspension was, and I battled in the braking zone. I wasn't anywhere near where Brent and Matthew were in the braking zone, and David. So you know, that was one thing. I take it and learn it. You know, it's a new bike. I got an awesome team, so no matter what, now we're going to put our heads down and get the golf going and have some fun and show the number 1 plate while we have it.
Firstly, I need to say it's big up to Medal Center Kawasaki, the guys that are getting behind me and making everything possible and making this happen. The 2 of those sponsors, along with RD Racing, Elaine from Dynajet, Gavin from Odin, Power Sports, my mom, my dad, guys getting behind us. And up until now, it's been pretty much one good heat, one bad heat, so we need to get a bit more consistency going. But hey, I'm stoked to get my second win of the season. So yeah, very happy.
Matt, an incredible day's racing here at Cape Town. It's kind of what we expected, and I think from a spectacle on the spectator side of things, as well as worldwide on live streaming, couldn't ask for better.
Yeah, I think round number 3 has really turned this championship around. It's blown holes in this championship as well. The Super 600s is closing up. We certainly saw chinks in the armor of the guys that we thought were untouchable. Stephen Odendahl, he made his own mistake out there. It was showed on TV. He got on the throttle a little bit too hard. Seller, teething problems on the bike, but we know he's going to turn that season around. He didn't lose too many points, and I think it is recoverable. But great to see the KTM RC 390s, the Super Juniors. They have probably given us some of the best racing that we've seen, and finally, we've been talking about it all day, the juniors have arrived.
Certainly have, and we're looking forward to all the action that's going to be happening very soon. 26th of July, of course, is one of the events, but 14th of June is when you need to be putting the next date into your diaries as we head to Red Star Raceway for round number 4.
A big thanks to Digital Entertainment On Demand and our associate sponsors for all this action from round 3 of the SuperGP Champions Trophy.